that you see in Hawaii with the lava flowing and the destruction that the lava brings. That's not the situation that occurred in El Salvador recently, but it doesn't make it any less harmful for the people who live there. So on December 29th, a Sunday morning, when everyone was going about their business, the volcano in which many communities where we have our partnerships are located were shocked to all of a sudden see the volcano come awake with smoke, just plumes coming out that were literally several kilometers in the air. And with that, there was a tremendous amount of ash that spread over many, many communities. It was also windy, and that ash was toxic. The air has become toxic, and the ash has just buried homes, the crops, livestock, the rivers, all sorts of things. And the community where Edwin's, not his parents, but where he was born and where his aunts and uncles, Piedra Azul, and that community is located on the side of the volcano, as is another church that we work very closely with, Llano El Coyal. It's where Edwin worked as an assistant pastor before coming here. And then the other community where we are in the process of talks about becoming a sister parish that was relocated is the Church of San Jorge, which is right in that same area. And all of those people were, without very much warning, had to leave their homes and move to evacuation camps. A few of the young men from the church stayed behind because there was no protection of the homes. And so there was a very serious concern about looting that might go on. And so some of the people risked their health to stay behind to watch things. And as the people were in the camps, they had no idea if their homes were collapsing from the weight of the ash falling on them. They had no idea what was happening with their livestock that was left behind, and no idea what was going on with their crops. And this is the end of the harvest season right about now in El Salvador. And so for those of you that have been to Honduras or El Salvador, you've probably seen along the side of the road in November and December and January, the beans spread out all along the sides of the roads and on the people's backyards as they dry them out for use. And so this is the stage where things were. People's backyards were filled with all the beans being dried out for being preserved for the rest of the year so that the families would have food for the coming year. And instead, all of those crops were buried under inches of toxic ash. And the families had food to eat while they were in the evacuation camps, but now they've been moving back to their homes, and they're digging their food out from underneath this ash, but nobody knows if the food is safe to eat or not. And so they've sent samples of the food, and they've sent samples of the ash to the universities in El Salvador where the scientists are studying, but they were told it would take 3 to 4 weeks if their food was safe to eat. And these are people who don't have lots of money in their savings account to say, well, we'll just run down to Super Selectos, which is their version of Pick and Save, and pick up groceries to hold us through. That's not an option for them. For many of them, having a car and traveling down the volcano and getting to town isn't an option. And even if they did, they don't have money to buy food for 4 weeks. The request we received was money for those families to have food for the next 4 weeks, the families from the churches. So together with Grace in Thiensville, Church of the Resurrection in Pewaukee, Lake Park in Milwaukee, and Ascension, we said that we would be able to send the money for those families to have food to eat. And Lake Park was gracious that they borrowed money from some of their other accounts and sent that money forward to El Salvador because we didn't want to wait and said, okay, we know you need money right now. It's on our agenda in 2 weeks to do an offering. So Lake Park loaned the money essentially with the hopes that we would be able to take up some offerings to send money back to repay Lake Park for the money they sent down. So where we are right now is still uncertainty. They're still waiting to find out how the animals are going to recover because some of the animals survived, some did not, some are still sick, waiting to find out what's happened to the quality of the soil, waiting to find out how quickly the homes can be repaired that were damaged. And there is one other message that we received from them. While they were in the evacuation camp, this was while we were experiencing the polar vortex. And because of all the connections they have to churches here, they heard about that. And they wanted us to know that they were praying for them. So these were people who are on the verge of losing everything they had, but they wanted us to be sure that they knew that they were keeping us in their prayers. And so as the people of El Salvador continue to face uncertainty from this calamity, that you also keep them in their prayers If you have a chance to send some messages of support, we'd be happy to get those messages. There's a group from Lake Park going down next week. We'd be happy to get some messages. If you guys want to write any notes or cards to send your well wishes, we'd be happy to transport those as well. So thank you very much for your support.